I think my wife has been putting super glue on my antique weapons collection. She swears she didn't, but I'm sticking to my guns. Hey kids, Adam here. So if you've been reading any of the groups, any of the Reddit, Discord, Facebook, any of that stuff lately, you'll see a lot of questions around Windows 11. Windows 11 is the latest Microsoft OS release, released last year at some point, or 2021 if you're watching this whenever. And there's a lot of questions around, is my stuff going to work? Is Reaper compatible? Is this compatible? Is that compatible? I wanted to put together a quick video. I'm about to upgrade to Windows 11 any weekday, month here, and figured I would kind of go through what I'm going to go through when I do my upgrade. So let's kind of dive into this. All right, first off, why would you want to upgrade to Windows 11? Well, the real reason is because you want to be up to date on the latest security fixes, performance enhancements, bug fixes, and cosmetic upgrades if you're into that sort of thing, but mainly for the security and the bug fixes. Microsoft is constantly working on updating their code, and they're going to put it in the latest OS first and then kind of backtrack it to everything else. Now that said, Windows 10 is still going to be around for a while. If you don't have a compelling reason to upgrade, I wouldn't. Normally I'm pretty early adopter on OSs, but like I use this main machine that I'm in front of right now for my day-to-day work. We've been working from home since it's just over 2 years now, every single day. I also do work from home. When we're back in the office, I'll still work from home more than 50% of the time. I need to have a very stable machine that I can trust. I use this for all my music. I use this for my video work that you see here, and I just need it stable. I can't be screwing around with things. But, and this is kind of a brag, I've never had an issue with an OS upgrade. I've also never had an issue with a Reaper upgrade. Every once in a while I've had an issue with a driver upgrade here and there, but I like to keep on top of things. I like to keep things updated. And I think the best way to do things is to make sure your systems are updated and constantly updating. So I'm actually getting ready to upgrade to Windows 11 here sometime in the near future. So let me show you some tips and tricks that I use to make sure I stay updated. Let's head over to the desktop screen share and I'll show you what I'm talking about. All right, here I am on the desktop. Nice, some picturesque thing of a mountain and some icons and stuff. First thing you need to make sure you have is some sort of backup. Now, I use the program called Backblaze. I got this from Mike over Let's Talk About Reaper. He suggested it as a cloud-based backup solution. I signed up for it at $60 a year. Inflation, price increases. It's now $70 a year, but it's like $7 a month or less if you pay yearly. And it's unlimited. There's no limit on the amount of data you can store. It stores multiple copies. You can restore down a single file or an entire drive or anything. It runs in the background. You don't have to worry about it. You can set up your windows of when you want to back up, when you don't want it to be messing with your bandwidth. I just have mine start at like midnight or 1 a.m. every night and end by 6 or 7. So make sure it's out of my working and my kind of playing and recording hours and things. And I never have to worry about it. Peace of mind, it's not something you should be relying on ever. It's that we call it in the IT business disaster recovery. If you're recovering from a true system crash or disaster. Now, that said, I also use both Google Drive and Dropbox for cloud storage. I use Google Drive for all of my own personal storage, and then Dropbox we use for our band for all of our sharing projects and things like that. I don't consider that a backup. Some of the programs in their professional versions things do have like version copies, but the main thing with a drive like that is if your machine gets hit by ransomware and your files get encrypted, it's going to encrypt up to the cloud too. And if that's on a single drive letter, you're kind of stuck. Maybe you can get back with previous versions and get some of that back, but if you have a true backup that's not attached as a drive and it's truly a backup client to a server, you will not run into these issues. Next, Windows updates. Now, this has kind of been a controversial topic that I've seen. I've seen people who say, I have a studio machine that never connects to the internet. It runs perfect. I never need to do anything with it. Well, at some point that thing's going to die. Or you're going to need to update something, whether it's Reaper, a plugin, anything to, kind of get current. And if you go long periods of time without updating, you're going to have more issues. The more updates you put on your system at the same time, the more possibilities you have of conflicts. I let Windows Update run just whenever it feels like it, and I tell it between certain business hours. Actually, in Windows 10, it kind of determines what business hours that I use it on, and it doesn't do updates through there. It does updates all on the other times. To get to Windows Updates, go down to your Start menu here, hit this little gear thing for settings, and it's Update and Security. It may be called something else depending on what actual version of Windows you're on. And you can see here it's wanting me to update to Windows 11. You see I'm up to date. It was last checked at 6:34 a.m. If I hit check for updates here, it's going to go through out to Microsoft site, go through the database, compare it against my machine, see what I have, see what I need. And stalling for time here to show it. So hopefully it comes back there. It's doing a update for Microsoft Defender, which there are several of those a day. It updated. I'm up to date. There is this view optional updates section. Most of the time it's going to be like drivers. So there's a couple drivers on here. I prefer to use the manufacturer driver, so I usually don't do these. So where do we go from here? We have our machine backed up. We have Windows updates. We can go to Windows 11, right? Not yet. The next thing you want to do after Windows Update is look at all your drivers. Now, some of them are available in this view optional updates. Some of them will come through as regular Windows updates, but you're best off going to your manufacturer, finding those updates and installing them. If you have what I call like a prepackaged computer or a one from a manufacturer, meaning like you went to Dell's site and you bought a Dell or an HP or a Asus or an Acer or anything like that, go to that manufacturer site, put in your serial number of your machine, find out all the updates. They're usually pretty good at updating drivers and things, and they'll tell you which ones are Windows 11 and which Windows 10 specific. For me, I build all my machines, so I get the case separately, I get the motherboard and memory and CPU and graphics card and all that, and I do those separately, and I think that's what a lot of you guys do out there. So you're going to want to do get updates separately. Let me close out here. There's a program that can help you find out exactly what you have, because you buy a motherboard and you install it, and you never really know exactly what the brand is unless you keep it off the top of your head. There is a program, and I will put the link in the description here. It's HW Info, and it is just a hardware info program. And what I usually do is I grab the portable version. I'll do the download here, just choose local, and I will extract these just into a folder. It doesn't really matter where. And then I'll run the 64-bit version of this program. Now it'll come up and it'll say, do you want sensors only? Do you want summary only? I just usually don't do anything with settings or anything here, and I hit start. And it goes through and it analyzes the devices. It looks at all the drivers that I have, all the pieces of hardware that I have. It's pulling a lot of this from Windows. It's pulling a lot of this from the BIOS. There's a update. I don't want to do the beta update here. So here's what we have. Let me move these windows over so they're all in the middle. There's some CPU monitoring. There's a lot of info on it. The big one I want here is the motherboard. There are a number of drivers for all of the things built onto the motherboard. You have your chipset, you have your USB ports, you have if you're using a sound card on your motherboard, if you're using your built-in networking, all of that is going to be contained in a motherboard driver. So I can copy this, just highlight it and copy it, and go to a browser tab, paste it in there. And then if Asus' site, you can tell I've been here before, go to the drivers and tools site. It will ask you to select your OS. Actually, before we do that, let's look at the BIOS and firmware. You can see there's an update here from March 7th, which is only a couple weeks ago. I want to do this BIOS update first. Now, I'm not going to go through it. There's no way to really do a screen share unless I use my phone and whatever when I'm doing BIOS. And every BIOS is going to be different. Asus motherboards are going to be different from whatever you have from like Dell or HP, which is going to be different from your MSI motherboard, which is going to be different from all other things. So I won't do that. I just make sure your machine is backed up before you do your BIOS upgrade. But a lot of motherboards need a BIOS update before they can use a new OS or before they can use like new size hard drives and things like that. You see a lot of hard drives are out there. There's like 8, 12, 16 gig hard drives out there. A lot of BIOSes need updating before they can support some of those newer things and some of the newer technologies. When you're done with that, go to the drivers and tools and choose Windows 11 as your OS. And all of the drivers that you're going to need. So for me, I'm going to need the LAN because I am hard connected right to my router. I don't need the wireless for this, but it wouldn't hurt to install it. The chipset is one of your most important drivers you want because that's what controls the entire motherboard. I don't use the audio. I don't use the built-in VGA. I have a separate card. I don't use the Bluetooth. Utilities, you could probably install those. And Armor Crate is like an RGB tool. I don't have a window on my case. I have one of actually a soundproof case, so I don't really need that. But I'm going to download and install those all separately. Make sure you reboot when it asks you to, even if it seems like every single one wants you to reboot. It's much better to reboot in between each one rather than running like 4 or 5 that may step on some files, and then you reboot and then you get a big mess. After that, I want to go to AMD's site, and I'll just do AMD.com here. I want to search for my chip, CPU, and see if there's anything I need to do for the CPU. So I go to drivers and support here, search for my products. I could just type in Ryzen 9 3900X, click on it, hit submit, and it'll come up with drivers and software for Windows 11. Now there's this Store Me, which I have no idea what this even is. So I know I don't use it, so I don't have to worry about this. If I go into the Windows 10 drivers, sometimes there is a update specifically for one piece of software that may not be updated for Windows 11 or may support both 10 and 11. I do use this AMD Ryzen Master. In fact, if I hit start and type in Ryzen, I'll bring this up here quick. This is kind of a neat little program that shows you temperatures and fan speeds and things like that, and just kind of overlays over everything. It'll show different cores, different threads, what everything's doing. You can create different modes for overclocking. Now, I'm not getting into any of that in this video. I will say that I don't overclock my machines right now. I used to back in my heavy gaming days, but I'm finding everything running at standard factory settings works just fine for me. I'm not really gonna get into that. So we're looking, temperatures okay, everything's good here, no issues, and this software is a good thing to get updated. In fact, if you go into any piece of software, here's kind of a general tip. If you go to the help or the about menu, it should show you the version of the software. So I go to about here and zoom in on this little tiny font. The version is 2.6.1702. If I go over here into the Ryzen, it doesn't give a version here, so I can go to the release notes, and it says the version 2.8.0.1937. I want to update this before I do anything and make sure that that's updated. So once we're done with that, we have the motherboard, we have the CPU. The next big thing is going to be your graphics card. So I have a Geforce 2070. Now I could do the same thing where I could highlight, copy and paste, put this in my browser, find it, but I already have the Nvidia software installed. So if I go down here into this little tiny icon, I bring up the Nvidia Geforce Experience. That's the program that handles all of the gaming settings and things. You can see all the weird games that I've bought or gotten for free and never really played. And if you go into the driver section, now I am using the studio driver because it works better with video editing than the game driver. There also is down here, there is the, where is it? I probably have it hidden, but there's a game ready driver. It depends on whichever one you use. In here, the version of the driver that I have installed is down here. It's 472.84, installed on December 13th of 2021. The new version is a 5 version, 512.15, released just a couple days ago before I recorded this. I'm recording this on Saturday the 26th. This was released 4 days ago. So what I want to do is I want to install this. Again, I won't do this while we're doing the video because that'll be a complete giant mess with the screen changing around and everything. And then make sure you reboot when you're done. Those are the main pieces of hardware that you really need to focus on before going to Windows 11. There are some other peripherals. I'm running a Razer mouse and keyboard. You can hopefully kind of see the mouse here. The cord is kind of there, and keyboard, I have RGB keyboard. Just trust me that it's right here and you can't see it. You can hear me typing away on it. There is a Razer program. Just go into there, make sure it's updated. I have a Logitech Brio camera. I want to make sure the drivers for that are updated because that's what I use for all my video conferencing for my day-to-day work and some play stuff. Any other drivers like that, if you have any USB devices, card readers, I'm trying to think of what USB devices are on, printers, scanners, anything like that, go to your manufacturer's site, put in your model number, get the driver, download it, make sure it's up to date and you have the latest driver on it. You'll notice I missed one, and that is the sound driver. You want to update your interface driver before you do Windows 11 as well, because Reaper Reaper interfaces with your interface, and that's how you get all your sound. Now I have and I'll put a picture up to it here somewhere. I have a Steinberg UR RT4 interface. It's made by Yamaha. If I just type in that Steinberg UR RT4 driver, I can go to Steinberg's site, which is actually on Yamaha owns Steinberg. I can go there. I can look for the drivers that are installed. Now, there is a Windows 10 64-bit, Windows 11 64-bit. The date is July 11th. I know I have that latest version. If I don't, I can go to my start menu, go down to Yamaha, go to the control panel, and it should give me the version in the About tab of the driver that I have. You can see I have 2.04 here. The included driver is 2.04. Now, some sites will also have, this is the main bundle of software. It includes some basic sound effects and some extensions. I have like a software-based mixer little window thing here. It updates that. Some sites will say they have the driver separately and they will update the driver on a more frequent basis than an entire bundle. That's what Yamaha does here. So if I click on this page and then I scroll down to Windows, I see that there is a more recent Windows driver. It is 2.1.1, where my previous driver was 2.0.4, released February 3rd of 2022. I want to make sure I install this. Again, broken record here, I won't do it on the video because that'll mess up all sorts of interesting stuff. But I want to make sure I do this first. So, once you have all your hardware drivers, what's the next step? Install Windows 11, right? Almost. We're almost there. What you want to look at is you want to look at software compatibility. What applications do you have installed on your machine? What does support for Windows 11 for those? Now, I run a lot of really standard apps. I run Office from Microsoft. I run like VS Code and PowerShell and things like that. Those are all Microsoft programs. Microsoft, anything within the last few years is going to support Windows 11 right natively out of the box, or we'll have a driver for it that's included in Windows updates or any of the normal updates that you see for your software. You shouldn't have to worry about those. I use Chrome for my browser. I leave that on auto update. That's going to be updated for Windows 11 as of at least 6 months ago, if not longer. I run like Google Drive and Dropbox. Those are all self-updating. Software these days have been pretty good at updating itself. I do run a couple other things, and one of them is this program called Aquasnap. And if I bring this up, if you look at like a window here, and you notice it snaps right in there. Or I can snap it to this, or I can snap that in there. I'm kind of OCD with my Windows positioning, and I like to have things like I'll have this window here for Explorer, and then I'll have one like right below it, and I'll have those all lined up so I know exactly where they are every time. With Aquasnap, that's what does this for me. Now there are some snap things in Windows, but that's more like you drag a window over the left side or right side of the screen, and it stays there, or it resizes, or you can get two side by side. I like the way Aquasnap does it because I can keep things within the same window size. So I want to go out and search for Aquasnap Windows 11. And if I go into here, this is the main Aquasnap site. It's kind of weird because I've been looking around through this and I'm trying to find what OSs they support. And at some point, it says Windows 7, 8, 8.1, 10. It doesn't say anything about 11. And I've searched around and I haven't really found anything about Windows 11. So this is a piece of software I would be kind of leery about. And just make sure if anything's happening weird with like window placement or things like that when I upgrade, I'm going to disable this and see if that helps. There's dozens of pieces of software out there, and I'm not going to go through any more than that. Just so you know that there's a chance that some piece of software you have may not work. Check the manufacturer's site, do some research, figure out if it works with Windows 11. If it doesn't, and like some software will say we specifically do not support Windows 11, or the company went out of business, just be careful with those. Microsoft has made it pretty good. You can roll back to Windows 10, but just maybe do some testing first, do some researching. In fact, if you search around, there may be, different news groups or things or forums that have information, and maybe a product just doesn't work with Windows 11, and you may need to look for alternatives for that. It happens in the software world. Like, we're not all running DOS programs still because Windows came about and everything else kind of evolved from there. So are we ready to install Windows 11 yet? Almost. And this is literally the last step, because we're doing this for Reaper, and we're all Reaper users. And the main reason I want to do this is to update my Reaper machine. There are a couple things in Reaper we need to make sure we have done, and we have backed up and things like that before we go. Let me open up Reaper. I'll be back just a second. All right, here we are on Reaper, and the first thing you'll see is that there is a new version notification for Reaper. And I tend to install these almost as soon as they come out. The only time I won't is if, like, I'm doing a video and I bring up Reaper for the first time for that day and it pops up with a version update. Well, just in case something ever goes wrong. Now, granted, I've never had a Reaper version crash on me or cause problems. So what you can do is you can proceed to the download page here. You can click on the Windows 64-bit. So I'm going to hit download here. It's going to download the version. I do want to close Reaper out. And every once in a while, my audio interface will glitch when I'm going in and out of Reaper, so I may have to cut some parts out here. Hang on a second. So once Reaper's downloaded, I want to just click on it. It'll run the install. I just do all the defaults, hit install, and it goes through. Then I hit close. It asks me if I want to run it now. Sure, might as well. All right, so Reaper's updated. Now we want to make sure we back up things like our preferences and make sure we know where our VST paths are and things like that. We're going to do an upgrade here, so it should keep everything, all your programs intact. But just in case, this is also a good thing to know if you're ever moving from one computer to another, how you back up your whole configuration and everything. If you go up here to offer options, preferences, go all the way to the top under general, do export configuration. You want to just select everything, which should be by default. If you hit save, it'll ask you where you want to save it. I'll just say I'll just say Dad 326 2022, and I'll hit save. It's going to go through. It's going to back up all my information, third-party plugins, my themes, any toolbars, any hotkeys. All that stuff is going to be backed up. And now I know I have it backed up. If I ever need to restore it, I can go to import configuration. It should bring up that same directory, double click on that. Now what I want to do is I want to take this file and I want to copy it somewhere to my cloud storage just as a third backup, or second backup, I should say. Actually, second backup, because the first backup is going to be on the Backblaze, second backup is going to be to my Dropbox, just so I have another copy of it. No big deal there. Next, what you want to do is you want to go in here to preferences, go to VST, and just copy and paste this path here and email it to yourself, or save it in a text file. It's going to be backed up just so you have these, because a lot of problems with upgrading, and I see this all the time. People maybe forget to check, or they'll check portable install, not really understanding what that means. And then they're like, all my plugins are gone. What happened? Well, probably it's not scanning these exact paths, and it's going to be different on every machine. I may have tweaked mine over time. I just want to make sure that Reaper knows where to look for all my plugins, because otherwise they won't come up. And you see this if you look at the Facebook groups. There's 10 posts a day about people who did something and they lost all their plugins. They upgraded, it doesn't work. Make sure you have this path. Emailing it yourself is the easiest way. Otherwise, I keep a Microsoft OneNote with a lot of different notes and tabs and things, and I have a tab for what I call like desktop upgrade, and this will just be a bullet point in there. You're done with Reaper. It's really it. That's really how easy this is going to be. Now, there are going to be a number of things that may have updates, such as I have TuneTrack for EasyDrummer. That has its own centralized installer. Waves are a fun friend. In fact, watch this from my recent experience with them. They have their own Wave Central installer. You want to make sure those versions work for Windows 11 as well. It should be pretty easy to tell. In fact, Waves came out with an update when Windows 11 came out. I haven't checked on TuneTrack, but all those things you're going to check. If you have like Contact Player for all of your MIDI instruments, you want to make sure you're on the latest version of that. And at that point, I think we're ready. All right, now that we have everything updated, we are ready to upgrade to Windows 11. It would have been really easy just to hit the button in Windows 11 because Microsoft, their marketing makes it seem like it's going to be that easy and everything's going to work and you won't have any problems. Now, some of these things that I had you do might not be necessary. They might not be 100% absolutely necessary. You may not need to do the one little point update for, let's say, your video driver or Reaper. You know, Reaper's supported Windows 11 for a while. You may not need to go to the latest version, but I'm always at the point where if I do a new OS install, I want to start from as fresh as possible. In fact, most of the times I don't even do an upgrade. I just wipe the drive, I back up everything, make a note of all my programs and all my settings, and then do a new OS install. That's a lot of work. In fact, in Windows 11, I think I'm going to do the upgrade because of how much better they've gotten over the years. And then when I do a new computer build, probably in the next 2 years, that's when I'll do my my new build. So what do you think of this video? I probably won't do another one of these for a while until Windows 12 comes out or 11.5 or something. But I thought this was a topic that was talked about quite a bit lately. This may seem overly basic, but really, if you follow all these things, you should have a pretty seamless experience upgrading to Windows 11. And then you get to deal with all the little things that Microsoft renames and moves on you because they felt like it. So, leave me a comment, let me know what you think. Are you on Windows 11? Have you been running it for a while? Are you thinking about going to Windows 11? Are you still one of those guys like on Windows XP in your machine that's not connected to the internet at all, and you're watching me on like your phone or whatever? Let me know. I'd like to hear it. In the meantime, like, comment, subscribe. Don't forget to check out our unofficial Reaper users group Discord channel. The link is in the description. And until next time, have yourselves an amazing week. Which is 3.1.1. That's not for my machine. That's for a Mac. If you're running a Mac, it's a different process. If you're running a Mac, you're probably not watching this because this is about Windows 11, which won't go on a Mac. So you could probably cut that part out of the video because it makes absolutely no sense.